Yo, what's up, guys? A real unfortunate loss tonight for the Toronto Raptors, losing to the Orlando Magic 130 to 120, guys. A really unfortunate loss tonight for the Raptors. A fourth quarter collapse tonight is the reason why the Raptors were not able to get a W in Orlando, guys. The Raptors, I felt, played three really solid quarters. You're up at 7 at half, playing some fantastic defense the Raptors were doing in the first three quarters of this game. You were limiting Orlando. Obviously they were making shots, but you were limiting the damage there. They weren't making as much shots as they were in the fourth quarter. The defense looked really tight. Raptors were moving the ball well offensively, sharing the basketball. Had like 11 assists, guys, like in that first half, doing a fantastic job in the first half and in the third quarter, guys. You had Brandon Ingram with 15 at the half. You had Scotty with 10. You had RJ Barrett with 10. Jacoby Walter had some fantastic minutes off the bench with 11 points. Had that fantastic layup at the end of the half where Scotty Barnes makes that incredible pass to him. The awareness that Scotty has, and great awareness by Jacoby as well. To see how much time was left on the clock there and to put it up before, obviously, the buzzer goes off. There was a great play, to sum up the first half for the Raptors, doing a great job defensively. You held Bane to 11. You held Carter to 10. Suggs only had 8. Banchero only had 6. They were limiting Orlando's offense. Orlando was shooting 36% from the field. Even though Orlando did get to the line 12 times, was 11 of 12 from the free throw line. The Raptors, I thought they did a good job defensively, and they were doing some good things offensively. They had that great sequence, they had a couple great sequences with moving the basketball around. That one where Brandon Ingram makes the three, where quickly passes it to RJ, passes it to CMB, to Scotty, then kicks it out to BI to make the three. That was one beautiful play that I saw tonight for the Raptors. I had some great blocks by Barnes, some by a block by CMB as well, guys. Brandon Ingram was scoring at will in this game, really doing a great job offensively for the Raptors, carrying majority of the workload. I felt in this ball game, Brandon Ingram was doing most of the work, and then the Raptors, Orlando obviously went on a run because Darko took out Scotty and BI at one point, and I do not want to see Coach Darko doing that anymore. You cannot be taking out Scotty and BI at the same time. You can't be doing, that we saw Orlando make a run, then they came back into the game. The Raptors went on a massive 16-9 run at the end of the third quarter, had a 13-point lead. Things were looking great. They had control of the game. RJ made that buzzer beater at the end of the third quarter. The Raptors were in control of the game, and then Darko takes them out again at the beginning of the fourth. Orlando goes on a run, and then that was it. The Raptors, they had no way to come back into this game. Orlando just started shooting at will. The corner three. Bane was a pain in the ass, making 7 3-pointers. Then you have guys like Suggs, obviously making some threes. Wendell Carter made a couple threes, guys. Banchero was a problem down low in the paint. So the Raptors, guys, unfortunately, they collapsed again, just like they did against the New York Knicks when the Magic got physical, started setting pick and rolls, and then the Raptors were just getting bit every time on the pick and roll. Orlando was making open threes, giving it to Banchero in the post, Carter down low in the post. It was a recipe for disaster in this game tonight. Just another example that this Raptor team here is very fragile mentally, guys, and very fragile physically at times. When teams get physical with this ball club, we have seen them cower down, collapse, and tonight was just another bad example of that. Orlando, they got to the free throw line a lot of times in this game, guys. 37 times they got to the bloody free throw line, making 33 free throws. When you get to the line and draw that many fouls, that's a recipe for disaster. The Raptors got to the free throw line 32 times, but they missed 7 free throws. If you make those 7 free throws, it's a one-possession game. You got to make your bloody free throws. And then the Magic as well, 50% from the field, 17 to 34. My God, they were just on bloody fire, especially in the second half. Even Black as well, he was making some shots, and then everybody was contributing for the Magic in this game, shooting 51% from the field, and the Raptors shooting 52% from the field themselves, but shooting 25 bloody percent from three-point land. This has been a major issue for the Raptors. Every time they go down, they start forcing up shots, they start panicking a little bit, and they're unable to shoot their way back into a game. And then when their defense collapses, we know that it's curtains, what we've seen a lot of times this season for the Raptors. They're not getting any production from guys like Grady Dick, who only played 7 minutes. After Jacoby had a solid first half, he plays 15 minutes total combined, guys. Jacoby, he played 15 minutes in total, like I said, guys, and in the first half, he played 9. So what the hell? He only played 6 minutes in total the rest of the bloody game after having 11 in the first half. That's down to Coach Darko. He should have played Jacoby more. Ochai only played 3 minutes. Jamal Shed played 21, only having 4 points. Doesn't shoot the ball enough. When you get no production from the bench who can't score 3-pointers, Grady Dick's supposed to be one of those guys, and he just hasn't been doing it. Brandon Ingram did enough tonight, but the Raptors tried force-feeding him, and then ended up biting them, turning the ball over a lot. RJ Barrett's obviously on a minutes restriction, but he played 31 minutes tonight, having 16 points, but was 6 of 14. When RJ doesn't make his shots as well, the Raptors are in serious trouble. Then you get guys like Colin Murray-Boyles passing up wide open layups. Like, my God, he pulled a Ben Simmons there. I couldn't believe what I saw from the kid there. I love the kid's energy. I love his defense, but Christ almighty, that was a bad moment for Colin Murray-Boyles on that open layup attempt, and he decides to make a pass. I love the unselfishness, but God almighty, he needs to do better there, if you guys ask me. Quickly, he was quiet tonight, only having 13 points on 33 minutes. Mamu only played 23, having 8 points. He had some frustrations tonight as well, guys, defensively. Offensively, didn't have a great game, so there were a lot of frustrations in this game today for the Raptors, especially without Jakob Poeltl. You don't have a guy there in the middle to oppose himself, block some shots, get rebounds, second chance opportunities. The Magic at times, they took advantage of the Raptors having Murray-Boyles at the 5 there. So the Magic knew when to exploit the Raptors. They knew when to push the ball up the floor, making their shots when they had to, and the Raptors just collapsed too many times offensively. Same thing defensively. Coach Darko could have adjusted some things, of course, maybe not sit Brandon Ingram and Scotty twice at different moments. Can't be doing that. Maybe give some other guys some leash, like Jacoby maybe, or Grady, but those guys there have shown at times that they can go cold and they can't be trusted in deep moments into the game. So there are obviously some frustrations with this game and the Raptors with Coach Darko, with the way this team operates offensively, guys. When they just force things, it's curtains for this ball team. And then when they don't defend, you just know it's going to be a long night for the Raptors, having fourth quarter woes, guys, again in this game. To see Orlando do what they did tonight without Wagner, on top of it, not having Franz Wagner, like, come on, man. That guy, there's another problem on top of it. When the Magic get him back, they're going to be a formidable team in the East. The Raptors have lost 2 straight games now, losing to the Knicks, losing to the Magic. Now you got to play Utah on Sunday. There's a lot of things that Raptor fans want before the deadline, and I totally agree. Bobby Webster needs to see that this team here needs improvements in certain aspects. Obviously, we need a shooter. We need a big, because the way this team is operating right now, guys, there's only maybe 1 or 2 teams that they could possibly beat in a playoff game, in a playoff series, because I don't see them beating a Philly or a Boston or a Detroit. So naming those 3 teams there, so there are a few teams that I just do not see the Raptors beating, guys, and Bobby Webster has to do something, do something big. Try to go for Giannis. Obviously, other than trading Scotty and B.I., everybody's available, if you ask me, for a trade for Giannis. But tonight's game was just another worrying moment for us Raptor fans, that this team here just crumbles. They collapse when things get too big for them. They're not able to turn it up a notch. This team, other teams are able to turn it up a gear, and the Raptors are just staying flat, not able to turn it up offensively. Same things defensively at times, even though the Raptors are a good team defensively, when other teams just turn it up a gear offensively, we just see the Raptors cower too many times. And then that fourth quarter was abysmal, getting outscored 44-21. Like, man, oh man, you just got pummeled in that fourth quarter, guys, and Orlando, they had 42 points in the paint compared to our 56. We were doing a good job getting points in the paint. We had 33 assists on 44 field goals made, guys. We out-rebounded them 48-41. Second chance opportunities, we had 11-7. We had 14 turnovers compared to their 12. So the Raptors obviously got to limit that a little bit more. You know, fast break points, again, 25-15. We're the best fast break team in the NBA, right? But unfortunately, when you do not get stops on defense, you're not able to push the ball forward, unfortunately. But the Magic were able to take advantage on points on turnovers, guys. 17 points to our 11. Another key reason why we lost this game. They were able to take advantage of our turnovers, make the three-pointers, make the field goals, take advantage of our collapses and miscommunications on defense. Raptors got flat offensively in that fourth quarter, and we've seen that too many times this year, guys. I think we could all agree on that. You know, if Bobby Webster wants to make a name for himself with this city and organization, now that Masai Ujiri is gone, he will do whatever it takes to try to get either Giannis here or get a center here or a shooter before next Thursday's trade deadline. This team here needs a piece or two. They definitely do, guys. This team constructed the way it is, I just don't think they're good enough to compete in the playoffs with those bigger teams right now. Even though they beat Oklahoma City in Oklahoma, it's a regular season game compared to the playoffs. I think the Raptors need to make a move before the deadline. There was just too many things tonight that I saw was like, yeah, you know, we need a center. You know, too many times the Raptors, you know, broke down low, you know, broke down on the perimeter. There were just a lot of frustrating moments tonight offensively, defensively, obviously with the coaching as well, not using his challenges, you know, obviously getting a tech, even though it was absolutely justified at times. The refs were a bit of a joke in some instances in this game tonight. I felt that did turn the game a little bit. Scotty and B.I. were able to come back and turn it back on the Raptors side. But then, of course, like I said, guys, the fourth quarter was just another frustrating collapse for the Toronto Raptors. We'll love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on this game tonight, guys. You're playing Utah on Sunday. Got to bounce back, but unfortunately, they're going to be playing at home. We know the Raptors struggle at home this year. They're a great road team, not a very good home team. They got to turn that around. You got to be better on your home floor with your fans. You know, hopefully they play better on Sunday games. These last two games have not been very good for the Raptors, guys. Love to hear your thoughts and opinions on the game tonight, guys. So like this video. Subscribe if you guys want to see more content. Go Raptors, go as always, guys. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Raptors Unfiltered. Ciao, guys.